I am so happy to be bringing onto the screen with me Dr. Mello, who is such a renowned and beloved integrative medicine doctor here he's based in Santa Monica in Los Angeles, but he's known across the country for really being a pioneer as someone from the traditional medical background with the full-on MD and all of that training, but then going into the field of integrative medicine to really look in depth at not just how do we fight disease once it's there, but actually how do we prevent disease and dis-ease from entering our body, mind, spirit, energetic experience. And he is so renowned, so beloved. I have been so overjoyed to know him, to work with him, to benefit from his great wisdom about the intersection of all of the different aspects of the body, of how what we eat, how we sleep, how all of these things, how everything intersects in our health and wellness or in dis-ease in any part of the body. And he's just written a brand new book, which I'm so happy to talk to you about today. His book is called Bloated. And you can see they actually did some real fun on the cover for I guess those who don't actually know what bloated means, to actually show you what it means. And in his book, he shares, and this is going to be the first thing I want to talk to him about today, this intricate link between the gut, which I've heard people now start to refer to as the second brain, the intersection between the gut and health in all other parts of the body. So, Dr. Mello, welcome. So wonderful to have you here today. Thank you so much for all that you do to keep so many people healthy and strong. And congratulations on this beautiful book. Share with us about why is the gut so important? How is it this second brain? And why should we care so much? I mean, if we're eating and we're urinating and we're defecating and things seem to be working, like why all of the attention and focus on the working of the gut?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sadhvi. It's the respect is mutual. Working with you and having you come into Akasha has been a blessing. I so appreciate sharing this time with you and all of those wonderful people who follow you. The gut has always been something that's been really dear to my heart, so to speak, gut health. So in my doctorate studies several years ago, my dissertation was called Gut Feelings, Psychosocial Factors in Gastrointestinal Disease. And why is that? Because I don't know if we realize every day how much we depend on the language of the gut to express our emotions, right? We say things like, what's your gut feeling, right? Because the gut doesn't lie. The gut tells the truth, right? So what is your gut feeling? What's your intuition? Or when we hurt, somebody hurts us, or we get hurt in some ways. So we say, oh, that feels like I got punched in my stomach, right? In my gut. When we are anxious, we say things like, oh, I feel like I have butterflies in my stomach. So the gut and our emotions are intrinsically connected. In fact, I often say we have made such advances, technological advances in medicine, in Western medicine, but we are very, very far away, eons away from for being able to do a gut transplant, a complete gut transplant. Because to transplant a gut, it means that we have to bring the original brain with it because of the highway of information and things like the vagus nerve, the phrenic nerves, all those things that we've heard throughout our lives. They are really important to keep our emotions intact, to keep our digestions intact. And so when we stand back and give that incredible organ voice to tell us what's happening, to speak to us, and once we're ready to listen to that voice, I mean, what opens up in front of you is incredible, right?
Yeah, wonderful. Absolutely. And in terms of the dis-ease of the gut, that aspect of bloating, of not having a proper digestion. So we understand the impact of it on us in that emotional sense, as you've been speaking about. Can you talk about the role that that plays in all of the rest of the afflictions that we experience in our bodies, in our minds? How does the gut connect and play into all of these other systems of the body?
Such a good question. So, because the gut is, I refer to it as the carburetor of your car, of the car, right? A carburetor, for those of us who don't drive electrical car yet, a carburetor is where everything happens. It's where gas becomes energy to drive the car. And so once we drive the car, the gas goes into the carburetor now converts that into energy, the car drives, and then the exhaust pipe releases the waste. Well, if you look at us, it's the same way. You eat whatever you eat, that food, the bolus of food goes down to your gut, the gut converts it into energy, protein, carbohydrates, whatever it is, and then the waste, we poop it out, right? So your gut is the carburetor. And so when the carburetor is off, everything is off. For example, serotonin, the feel-good hormone, like most hormones, is metabolized in your gut. And so when the gut is inflamed, when we have symptoms like bloating, either because we are stressed out, and when we are stressed out, cortisol is that hormone that rains on everybody's parade. It goes in there and basically rains on your parade. It destroys or makes things challenging, more challenging for you. And so when we're stressed, cortisol goes up, and cortisol in turn decreases the effectiveness of serotonin or decreases the metabolism of serotonin. So then people come in and they are down, they're depressed, right? Circumstantially depressed. They cannot sleep. They cannot sit still. Something is, quote unquote, off with them. So connecting with the gut, clearing your gut, making the gut healthy, it's actually giving your body a better way to connect with the world from a social, emotional standpoint, because you're releasing better serotonin. In addition to that, you can also metabolize your food better, right? When the gut is not inflamed, when you can eat properly, you metabolize your food better. When you metabolize your food better, you have more energy. When you have more energy, you're able to do more of what you want. So medicine in our world, modern medicine in this country, in Europe, have been talking about it for 500 years. But, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine have been talking about it for 5,000 years plus. So, right? So when you stand back and you say those incredible ancient medicine, the medicine of wisdom, I often say that the Western medicine is incredible for technological advances. It's incredible to move the dial in terms of what we need to do, from a simple EKG or chest X-ray to surgery. That's Western medicine. But Western medicine, without the wisdom of the Eastern medicine, actually is not effective. And so it becomes more like a mechanical kind of medicine that comes in, affects, and very effectively fixes one problem and says, bye-bye, see you into the next crisis. Whereas integrative medicine, functional medicine, gut medicine, the medicine that looks and says, I wonder what your body is trying to tell you. Are you able to listen to those symptoms? And those symptoms usually have to do with the gut. In most cases, gut related, right? We get tired. We feel like, our excretion is a little affected, right? We get stressed. We don't eat well, or we don't eat at all, or we overeat. So our digestion is affected. The way we release our food, the way we excrete our food is affected. So the gut is that place, is that organ that I refer to as the seat of your soul. Right?
Wow.
And there is the microbiome. We've been talking about the microbiome for the last 20 years. It's become this incredible body of knowledge that we know that we are, in essence, more microbial than we are humans. Right? And why is that? Because when you look at the human cells as compared to a bacterial cell, it's really tiny. A bacterial cell is smaller than a, and so in terms of proportion or number, we are much more bacterial. We are much more, microorganism oriented than we are humans. And so when you look at that and you say, well, how do I balance it out? If I have this incredible organ called the microbiome, I refer to it as an organ actually, because it has all the properties of an organ, the microbiome. And a lot of scientists are actually referring to it as the newest organ in our system. So when you refer to the microbiome as an organ, then you know that it's incredibly capable of absorption, excretion, right? And of really leading you into this path of what we call good biosis, right? Which is balance. So you have good biosis and you have dysbiosis. And it usually has to do with how those bacteria are balanced in your body.
Beautiful. Wow. As a lot of people are joining, and I'm seeing so many people joining in, which is so wonderful. I'm going to ask you just for a moment before I go on to my next question, to just, for those who have just come in, to just restate in just a line or two, that incredible connection that you spoke about earlier, about how that which takes place in the gut is interacting so much with our levels of serotonin and the levels of our mental and emotional state. Because I know such a large percentage of people who are in this beautiful community with me and participating in satsang and meditation and these programs. I mean, we're so focused on finding that peace and that freedom and that love within ourselves, and the idea that that which is going on in our intestines is actually having a huge impact on the state of peace and joy in our brains. Is really an amazing thing. So if you wouldn't mind just repeating just one or two lines about that for those who have just joined in, and then I want to get on to the subject of your book.
Oh, absolutely. So what I said is that the gut is the seat of our soul in a way, and not only of our soul, of our physical existence. And this has been talked about for thousands of years. From in Western medicine, we know that it's a new thing, so to speak. Only recently, in the last 25 years or so have we really paid a lot of attention to the microbiome. But Hippocrates said in the beginning of medicine, right? Health starts in your gut, right? So many of those philosophers have said you are what you eat. And in my book, I've said you are what you eat and what you've been fed, both physically fed and emotionally fed. Why is that? Because serotonin, the feel-good hormone, is metabolized in your gut. And when the gut is inflamed, meaning when the gut is not working properly, the serotonin is diminished. It cannot really be released at the levels that it's supposed to. And so when people come into my offices, Sadhvi, and they say, I am depressed, or I have brain fog, or I cannot really be productive the way I was, or I feel moody, the first question that I ask them, let's talk about your gut, because the gut is the carburetor of your body. The gut is the hard drive. The gut is where everything happens. So
beautiful. So then if the gut is this huge, incredible organ, as we're saying, that's leading to not just our actual experience of digestion, but the strength in our body, the health of our body, as well as our mental state, how we feel, how we think, how we sleep. Why the emphasis on bloating then? Out of all of the different topics related to the gut, why did you decide to focus your book on bloating specifically?
that's an excellent question again. Two reasons. One is because one of the first things that happen when the gut is dysbiotic, and by dysbiotic I mean out of biosis, out of balance. One of the things that it does is that it bloats, right? We have and why does it bloat? Well, let me give you an example. When you have a jar of food in your fridge and that jar of food goes bad, when you try to open, that is usually it's a little hard to open. When you open, there's this amount of gas that comes out, right? It puffs out. It makes it sometimes even makes a noise, and it smells. Well, if you bring that into your gut, that's exactly what happens, right? When we are out of balance, when we are not eating correctly, when we're not sleeping the right amount of hours, when we're not drinking water, when we are not really attending to the me of you, the side of us and its attention, the bad bacteria and the good bacteria become out of balance. And when that goes out of balance, your body increases fermentation, which is exactly what gas is over fermentation, either because your food is overly fermenting, because of the bad bacteria, or the food in itself is, a food that ferments when you eat, such as, a lot of foods out there that can create a lot of bloating independently of what your microbiome is doing. And so why bloating? Because, and I don't say this lightly, I'm aware that there's an epidemic that we are in the middle of this epidemic that is destroying so many lives and so many economies and so many livelihoods. So I say this not very lightly. And bloating has become another epidemic. When I see the number of people that come into my office and they say, I don't know what to do, but I cannot zip up my pants, no matter what I eat, right? My belly is bloated. I feel like I don't like the way I look. I feel embarrassed that I'm passing so much gas. I feel embarrassed when I take off my clothes, at the beach or when I'm working out. I don't feel like myself. So the reason I wrote the book is because so many people feel ashamed. They feel that they are alone. They feel that they're doing something so horribly wrong that this is, the payout that they get. They've been bad. So there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt associated with feeling bloated, feeling, embarrassed. And a patient of mine said the other day, I look at myself and I'm disgusted at what I see. And that was like, I felt so sad for him, because you don't want to feel disgusted about yourself. And so no matter what, right, no matter what we do. So when I looked at that, I wanted to let my patients know, to let the community know that they're not alone, that this has become a problem that is going out of proportion in so many ways, and that we think it is so difficult to attain resolution. It is so difficult to get to a point where we're no longer bloated, that I wanted to prove people that that's not true. That actually, when you do a program, when you listen to what your gut's saying, creating an environment where bloating is not a part of it is actually easier than what you thought. So, 2 reasons why I wrote the book. One is to show the community out there, the people who are reading the book, patients and non-patients, that this is more common than what they believe. In fact, the latest research is that 1 in 4 Americans in this country alone are bloated. And the other reason is that I wanted to give them a guide of where to start. Where do I start? And the guide are simple things like take an inventory of what you're eating, right? Ask your gut when you eat, do we really like this? And be ready for the answer. You may not like the answer, right? If you are somebody who loves chocolate, like myself, for instance, dark chocolate, and your body doesn't like it, or you over ferment, or there's something that in enzymes that they're not working properly for you, you're going to bloat. So when you ask the question, what do you need from me, my gut, so that I don't bloat, be ready to hear the answer.
Beautiful. I just want to, for a quick moment, for those who are newly joining in, just let everybody know that I'm here live with Dr. Mello, who is the founder and the head of the Akasha Center for Integrative Medicine in Santa Monica, California, and a very beloved, respected, renowned integrative doctor. He's an MD, and yet instead of practicing just traditional medicine, has expanded into integrative functional medicine, looking really at the nuances and the interactions between what we eat, all of the different aspects of our nutrition, of our digestion, and our every aspect of our health, from our physical health and stamina to our mental health and well-being, our emotional state. And I have the beautiful joy of having him today and being able to be in this beautiful conversation, as he's just written a brand new book called Bloated, in which he's talking about this epidemic of indigestion amongst people all over the country and all over the world. So you mentioned that people should be taking an inventory. Is that what you would say is the first step? I mean, I know that lots of people listening to this are going to immediately put their hands on their stomachs and feel like, yes, I guess maybe I am a little bloated. So what to do about it? What's the first step? And also, along with that, is there a way to know whether the bloatedness that you feel is just the normal, natural kind of a little bit of indigestion, or when it's actually something that really needs to be addressed and treated seriously?
Yeah, great question again. Yeah, when I say take inventory, is that it's just to empower people. The most of us know the foods that our bodies do not like. And when we pay attention to what the body's telling us, the idea of really moving from a place of disease, right? not being at ease, you are diseased, to a place of wellness. It's actually incredible because the body talks to us. It tells us what it needs. It uses a language called symptoms. That's the language. And like all of us, most of us who have had the privilege to be among young children, when they're crying, when they are upset, pre-verbal, pre-language, they're trying to communicate with us. They're crying, it means something to them. Our job is to interpret that language and say, oh, she's upset, she has this strange anxiety, she's hungry, she's wet. Well, that's the body. At one point, the body becomes your child. And as funny as that may sound to some of us, when you step back and you say, let me look at what the Mello is saying, right? Who puts your body to sleep? Who feeds your body? Who cleans your body? Who protects your body from being hit by a car? Now you look right and left. That's you. So at one point in our lives, we become the parent to our body. As the parent to our body, we have to listen to what it's telling us. And that can be scary sometimes, because if you say, I have to listen, the question is, are you ready to hear what it's going to tell you? And so to do an inventory, what I mean is basically to see sometimes, either in meditation, in a quiet space, and to say, tell me more, talk to me. And it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you, which food you shouldn't be eating, or you should be more aware of, or you should sprout some foods that will make it better for your body. And so the first step is to take inventory, is to say, what am I eating? Number one. Am I drinking enough water? Number two, right? We are 80% water, roughly 78%, right? The universe, the earth, is 78% water. So look at the beautiful connection. And water is always moving, right? A body of water that is alive, the ocean, the river is always moving. So water in our body is moving as well. And so that water gets evaporated through our hair, through our saliva, through our tears, through our sweat when we go to the bathroom. So drinking water is a physiological need that is extremely important for all of your systems, specifically for gut health and for your skin, the second largest organ in your body, right? And so we need to really take a step back and say, okay, the inventory about food, the inventory about sleep, the inventory about my belief system. What do I believe? What is the world against me? Do I believe that I'm here fighting against the world, or is the world out there saying, hey, Mello, go out there and conquer, get what you want, let me show you how. So all those belief systems that get imprinted in our psyche when we are small, or whatever cultures we're from, play a function in this inventory that I'm talking about. So the first step is the inventory. The second step is to pick 3 things that you could be doing differently, either because you read my book, or because you're going to go in the internet, or because your physician or your healthcare practitioner have been telling you that for a long time. Do you stop to eat your food? Do you chew your food? Right? If you think about your gut, Sadhvi, you have 30 feet plus of gut inside of you. How is that possible?
Amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing to think about it. I know I'm about 5'3". Most of us are somewhere between 5 feet and 6 feet tall from bottom to top. And we pay so much attention to these 5 or 6 feet. But the idea that we've got 30 feet inside of us and we're not paying almost any attention to it is just such a tragedy.
Yeah, and if you take a telephone cord, a traditional telephone, you see that it's all going to be entangled. Well, that's your gut. It's all entangled into this little ball, and when you stretch, it can go from one end to the other. That's exactly your gut. In fact, we do that when we have to do surgery, right? We have to untangle it. And so remember, just for a second, stop and see the amount of the work that the gut has to do once you start eating. So you have to chew that food in such a small amount, pieces, in such small pieces, with a lot of saliva for the food to be able to easily travel through your mouth, down your esophagus, down your intestine, your stomach, your intestine. And so eating, making time to eat, making eating kind of a divine process for you, actually. You're feeding your body. You're putting something into your body that says, now work. Here's your gas. So how many of us stop to say, I'm going to spend time energizing this food that's going to go into my body? So that's the first step. Even if you have 5 minutes to eat. Oh, I only have 5 minutes, Dr. DeMello. I don't have any time. Well, take that 5 minutes and sit down. Take 5 minutes and go in a quiet space instead of being in front of your computer or on your desk or in your car, right? Going through the drive-throughs. That's the modern life. So the second step after the inventory is to see, okay, now that I have the inventory, again, 3 to 5 things that I can do, right? Eating more slowly, chewing my food, drinking enough water, being grateful that I have this food in front of me, right? Exercising is another thing that we can do. Why do we talk about exercise? A lot of us in LA have this pressure to exercise because of the movie industry, right? That's not really why exercise is so important. Yeah, it's important to allow us to feel good, to feel healthy and fit. But exercise is also important because it helps your body metabolize the food. We are born to move. Everything about us is movement. You don't think about getting up and walking, but yet you do. Yes. When we finish this conversation, I'm sitting, I'm going to get up and walk. And I'm not going to say to my body, okay, now get up and walk. The body will do it on its own, right? It's that intelligence that it needs to be supported with all the things that it needs, from food to movement. So movement, when you eat, will help this bolus of food to move more precisely. And when you move, you release more enzymes. When you move, you're breaking down these foods more readily. So exercise, movement, any kind of movement is extremely important for this digestive system that is so dear to all of us. Without it, our life would cease to exist, right?
It's amazing, in India, eating is a sacred thing. The food is offered to the divine with prayers, and the prayers basically say, I am the divine, that which I am eating is the divine. And it's this union or reunion of self with self through this divine experience of taking in the food. The food is truly seen as the divine. And so as you speak about finding a quiet place, even if you've only got a few minutes, nonetheless, sitting down, making sure that you're calm, not eating as you're running down the street or eating as you're driving in your car. And yes, of course, we're all busy, and yet we all have to find that time for that which is important for us. And it's so sad that the things that are so critical to our health, like sitting down to eat and eating slowly, or exercising or meditating, tend to be the things that are last on our list after every other to-do item has been done. Right. Then if there's time left, I'll exercise. If there's time left, I'll meditate. If there's time left, I'll sit down to eat. So it's so beautiful to hear you sharing these, because in the world I live in India, you wouldn't see people not sitting down to eat. Or if you did, inevitably there would be some elder person around who would give them a proper scolding for standing up and eating, and, you know, force them to sit down and have a proper meal. So in that case, can you let us know then? And I'm going to ask you another question, but I also just wanted to let all of those who are with us on the call know, if any of you have any questions to ask Dr. DeMello about the role of digestion, about the role of the gut, about bloating, about that intersection between your gut and your health and how to improve it, or anything that you're struggling with, feel free to put those questions in the comments, and I'd be happy to read them out loud. But I had a question, which is, some people seem able to make a very slight change in their diet or a very slight change in their eating habits, and it really seems to fix everything for them. And then there's other people. Someone above had put a comment that they'd been struggling with bloating their entire lives. Why is that some people seem to get fixed really quickly and others seem to have guts that, regardless of what they do, it doesn't seem to go away?
Yeah, another excellent question. So the microbiome, as we talked about a few minutes ago, it's this the seat of the soul. It's this place where, you know, the machinery of eating, the wisdom of eating, the divinity of eating all come together. So there's a physiological piece that happens in your gut. Enzymes get released, acids get released. There is an awareness that happens in your gut, like the gut feelings that we talked about. And there is a divinity that happens in the gut. And we all know that. You know, also the intuition, the place when we put our hands in our tummy, you know, we can feel that place of connection. In fact, most of us forget that our umbilical cord is what connected us to our mother, right? The umbilical cord, and now we have the umbilicus, is the remnant of that connection with our mothers. It's the connection where we were fed for 9 months, where we didn't need to do anything. All we needed to do is be in this incredible container of warm water, of floating around with most of us, with a mother that really wanted to feed us. And so when you put our hands in our gut, you are putting your hand in your umbilicus, which is actually a remnant of that connection with the mother, the umbilical cord. Mm-hmm. So there's divinity in it. And how many of us think of that, right? So that place alone tells us a lot, right? What is the connection with our history, right? It's one thing that you need to look at. In terms of physiological pieces for us to look at as why some people get better faster than the other, a lot of it has to do with, again, as I said in the book, what were you fed as a child and what you continue to feed yourself as an adult. So we need to look at that. For example, in the book, I equate, Sadhvi, the microbiome to a beehive. We haven't seen, many of us have not seen the microbiome, right? I mean, you cannot see on the naked eye, even when you do open surgery. But with a lot of us, either have physically seen a beehive, or we have watched it in a movie or in a documentary, and the beehive has one single function. It's like millions or thousands of bees attending to one message. There's a message from the queen bee that says, make honey. And that's the message. And what it needs is 3 things. It needs good food, so that's good pollination. It needs temperature, a good temperature. So you cannot have a beehive in a very hot environment or in a very cold environment. It needs to be a temperate environment. And it needs to be taken care of with love. So if you take a beehive and you spray it with pesticide, you're going to kill the beehive. Now let's go back to our beehive in our gut. What does it need? Well, same thing. good food, right? That's pollination. Needs a good water source. It needs also to have a good temperature. So in Ayurvedic medicine, in Chinese medicine, we use the term keep the fire in your belly, meaning that, right? You've heard that. You don't eat food that is very hot, that is very cold, because you're going to shock the system. No different than if you are in your bed, cozy bed, and I take you out and put you in the cold weather. You're going to go like this. You're going to, right? Your body's going to constrict itself. That's what happens in the gut. So temperature is very important to do for this beehive to be working. In the Western world, where I grew up, for example, whenever somebody sneezed, the answer was take an antibiotic. You sneeze, take an antibiotic. If you had a cough, take an antibiotic. If you had whatever malady, the answer was always take an antibiotic. So antibiotic is to your beehive in your gut what pesticide is to beehive outside your gut. Basically destroys the lining of your gut. It basically makes the line of your gut really unable to stay strong, to stay impermeable to other things. And so when somebody says to me, I've been bloated all my life, the first thing that I ask them, once I bring in the awareness of, let's talk to this gut, let's have a communion with the gut first. That's the first step. The gut is not your enemy. It was never set out to make life difficult for you. Once we clear that out of the way, Sadhvi, the next question is, tell me about your childhood illnesses or maladies and how it was treated. And in a lot of ways, it was treated with a lot of medication.
Antibiotics, yeah.
So
it's such a tragedy.
It is a tragedy. So we don't see a lot of that in countries like Brazil, where I was born. When I was growing up, we didn't see a lot of that. My grandmother, who is my first teacher, my medicine woman, grandmother, teacher, she used herbs. She would say to us, a fever is a good thing. A fever is your body raising the temperature to kill the bacteria, the microorganism that shouldn't be there. Why are you medicating the fever? And we say, but grandmother, is there a limit? Should say yes. Depending on your age, there's a limit of how high this fever can go. But you don't take an antibiotic the moment you have a fever, unless it's something that is really dangerous for you, that you have an infection. You take a step back and you support your body. Once you've been diagnosed, once all the dangers have been removed, you support your body in that process of innate process of trying to get rid of the bacteria or the whatever microorganism is invading your system.
Wow, beautiful. This is so much information. And I know that in your new beautiful book, Bloated, you've covered so many topics. And in terms of if people want to get the book, to find out more about the book, to find out more about you and the Akasha Center, I know there are a lot of questions arising. How can people find you? How can they reach you? How can they get their questions answered? And how can they get a copy of this book?
Oh, beautiful. So the book is available on Amazon. It's called Bloated. And as you mentioned before, I have a copy here as well. What I wanted is, let it go. It's a bee that it was a pregnant bee that reminds people that we all feel that way sometimes. A bloated bee. And also the bee that reminds us of a toilet, right? It's a little bit of a toilet because we have so many myths about going to the bathroom. There's so much shame around it. There's so much secrecy about it that when something goes wrong in our when our elimination, we feel lost. We feel embarrassed to ask. So how to find the book? Amazon has it. Amazon.com. You can enter my name, Edison Mello, or Bloated Book. and you can find it. We have a website, www.bloatedbook.com. Bloatedbook.com is another way to get information. In their website, there's also going to be ways that you can learn, Sadhvi, how to take steps to improve bloating. It's a program that we've created called the Reset Program, basically how to reboot your system. And so we walk people through the steps for them to start cleaning this bloating out of their lives and live the lives that they were meant to live. A healthy, beautiful, productive life, and happy. And if you have any questions, specific questions that my staff can answer, you can go to info@akashacenter.com. And Akasha is AKASHA, info@akashacenter.com. Leave your questions there, and one of us will be more than happy to get back with you and answer your questions.
Wonderful. And I'll make sure to get all of these details into the text that's going to go with this. For those of you who have just come on in the last few minutes, this is going to go as an IGTV onto my Instagram, so you can watch the whole thing from the beginning. I've been live with Dr. Mello, the founder and the head of the renowned Akasha Center for Integrative Medicine based in Santa Monica, California. And Dr. Mello has just written this new fabulous book called Bloated that really showcases the intersection between what we eat, how we digest, how we eat, and how our entire body, mind, emotional, energetic complex feels and moves through the world. Everything ranging from our ease or dis-ease, our health and wellness, to illness, or even things like depression and anxiety and sleeplessness and so much else. How so much of that intersects with that which takes place in the 30 feet of our gut, which is fed by that which we take in, the food, the water, and of course issues of, I imagine, pesticides and chemicals and
Yes.
all of that which is being done in the name of development and progress, but actually on so many levels is harming us. And I love listening to you share about the wisdom of your grandmother, because it is really in so many cases that ancient, that indigenous wisdom, whether it's ancient Brazilian indigenous, whether it's ancient Indian indigenous science of Ayurveda, all of these sciences actually amazingly say the same things. You tell me what your grandmother says, and it sounds exactly like what the Ayurvedic experts living in India say. So that wisdom is so profound, and yet tragically, in the name of development and progress, we're moving away from that. And yet you, with your beautiful work with treating patients at the Akasha Center, as well as now with the book and all of the online programs, are helping people get back to their natural state of health. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing here in Los Angeles, doing for the country, doing for the world as such an incredible doctor, and now as such an incredible author. And thank you so much for bringing this wisdom into the world.
Yes, and thank you again for having me. Thank you for trusting my work, the extension of my grandmother's work into this world. And as we say goodbye for now, and I want to join you again in a future event. I want to say that, you know, one of the most important things that you, the incredible community out there listening to us, can do when seeking health, good health, when seeking a practitioner, is make sure that there's a connection with a practitioner. So many of us go into offices, meet practitioners to whom we have no connection. There's nothing wrong with not having a connection with a person, as many of us do not have a connection with everybody that comes into our lives. But when it comes to your body, make sure that the person you're talking to look at you in your eyes and say, let me meet you before I meet this condition that you came here for. Because in meeting you, she is meeting or he is meeting your wisdom. He is meeting or she is meeting your power, your gut feeling. We are here, we doctors, practitioners are here to interpret what your body's telling you. We are interpretations of what you know. And sometimes all it takes for you to know what your body's telling you is for you to listen and to be grateful for this incredible human suit that we inhabit. So I so appreciate you having me, Sadhvi, and like you are acknowledging my work in the world, I want to acknowledge yours. Your work, your vision, your words, your authorship of the things that you've done, including your new book. All of this is what the community needs more than ever before. I know how COVID has become an incredible distractor to many of us, but COVID has also become an incredible teacher to so many of us, because it forces us to sometimes stand still and sometimes to ask the question, to be curious about what our body is telling us, how our body is dealing with what's out there. So thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. And I so appreciate being able to share my knowledge with your audience.
So, so much love to you, and so much love to all of you. So glad you were all able to join us today. And again, we will be sharing this as an IGTV. So whatever parts you missed, you can come back and watch later on. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your afternoon and evening if you're here in California, and good morning to everyone in India. And so much love to all of you.
Okay. Thank you, Sadhvi.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye.